On this now, we're going to be joined by talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex the Crook joins us. Crookie, hello, good afternoon.
Crookie Monster.
Good afternoon. How are we?
We're great. How are you today? Where do we find you?
Back in the office,
Back
as
in the
always.
office, back in
slaving
the office.
away.
Well, I don't know about that. Listen, I know you've got a few things to talk to us about. We're going to start with this appointment. Are you surprised by it? And are you surprised that it's been made when it's been made? Because Jay and I were just talking about this big game that's live on talkSPORT on Saturday at 3 o'clock on talkSPORT 2, actually, against Southampton. Jay was saying they needed to make that appointment before the game.
Yeah, I think that was the driving factor, to be honest. I think they got really worried at the weekend leagues, not just by their own 1-0 defeat at Everton, but by the fact that other results went against them. All of a sudden, they found themselves second from bottom in the Premier League table without a permanent manager. They reached out to Javi Gracia at that point. They spoke to him on Monday. They were impressed by what he had to say, and they want him in the dugout for this huge game against their relegation rivals, as you say, on Saturday. That isn't guaranteed because they're still waiting for the necessary work permit to come through. I'm interested by the wording of their statement. It was released around about an hour ago, and they say that Javi Gracia has agreed a flexible contract at Ellen Road, which is a new one on me. I understand it's a contract until the end of the season. Obviously, if he keeps Leeds up, then he will have a good case, I think, to want a more permanent contract. I think he was on a rolling deal at Watford when he first went there. The statement also points out his achievements at Vicarage Road, not just the FA Cup final in 2019 when they were a bit embarrassed, in all truth, by Manchester City at Wembley, but the fact he came in halfway through a season, kept Watford in the Premier League with games to spare. Clearly, that is the driving force. And I think it's the right thing for Leeds to do, to bring in a permanent manager. It rarely works, does it, long term, when you've got a caretaker in charge, and it's all unravelled quite quickly for Michael Skubala.
Yeah, and also they've seen other clubs around them, Crookie, pick up results. Southampton, the game you and I at the weekend. West Ham, of course, the only other side that lost down there. Bournemouth, they picked up a win. Everton picked up a win. There's other teams around there. And all of those teams I've just mentioned have changed their managers. It feels like that they had to do something. You can't keep drifting going through the rest of the season. Also, more importantly, the players need that. They need direction.
I think so. And also, you make a really relevant point there about how competitive it is down at the bottom of the table. Take Crystal Palace, for example. They're 12th on 26 points.
Not Chelsea?
6 points clear of safety. Well, Chelsea are 11 points clear, so I think you're going to be okay, Joe. But at this stage of last season, Palace were in a similar position in terms of where they were in the table. They had a 13-point buffer to the bottom three. So that tells you how competitive it is. And I think it was, the first time in 8 years that all of the bottom three managed to win at the weekend. I think it's really difficult to predict with any certainty. I know Simon Jordan tried it earlier today, but it's really difficult to pinpoint three teams you can say will definitely go down, because there aren't any whipping boys this season.
I agree. Listen, before we let you go, I understand you've got some breaking news that could affect Brighton.
Yeah, just a little bit on Roberto De Zerbi. There was a story in the Daily Telegraph earlier today suggesting that clubs in Italy in particular are casting admiring glances in his direction. And I believe there is a bit of a concern at Brighton that maybe De Zerbi could be on the radar of teams like AC Milan in the summer. He's done a wonderful job, hasn't he, since coming in. They're 7th in the table. No real hangover from losing Graham Potter to Chelsea. In fact, you can argue that Brighton are probably the big beneficiaries of that at the moment. I think if they qualify for Europe, that then De Zerbi would be tempted to see the project through. But if you look at his CV, he doesn't stay anywhere for very long. So I think Brighton, just preparing, they might have a bit of a battle to keep hold of their manager. He's got a big release clause in his contract. So just one to keep an eye on over the next few weeks and months to see if anybody is inclined to trigger that release clause.
Crookie, thanks for coming on. I love the roll neck. If people are watching on YouTube, they can see the roll neck. When have you got to deliver the milk tray by? What time?
I'm off to do it now.
He's eating it. Apart from the toffee ones. No one likes the toffee ones. Crookie, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers, guys.
There you go. A reminder, of course, a massive game of football, Leeds against Southampton. You can hear it live on talkSPORT 2 Saturday at 3 p.m.